SciByte is produced by JupiterBroadcasting.com. Check us out, independent entertainment that's on demand. Hi everyone, you're listening to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science podcast. We recorded this one live on March 6, 2012, probably for release later that night, to be honest with you. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Heather. Hey there, Heather.
Hello there, Chris.
Hey, happy science to you, Heather.
Happy science.
Hey, what do we have coming up on this week's episode?
Today, we're going to take a look at the possible atmosphere on one of Saturn's moons, molecular oxygen, heart-powered pacemakers, three-dimensional fossils, the acidity levels of a moon on Jupiter, what your Facebook page says about you, transistors that crumple, viewer feedback, and as always, take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty great range of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to dig my teeth into that. You know, I am very excited to be back doing SciByte. It is the only audio-only show that we do, so it changes it up for me. It freshens it every single week. It's different than every single other show we do, and we're back in the audio saddle this week. We were actually video last week, so if you want to check that video out, you guys can do that. But, you know, I really like doing the audio thing. I think it is an excellent medium for a lot of things.
You like doing it in your PJs?
I am, you know, actually, I do have PJ pants on. I did.
Comfy in the office.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot of extra work.
You know.
Cutting the video.
You know, this chair is way more comfortable than the chair out in the studio. I'll tell you that. And then also, I still snap my hair on, so it's all there. So like, I'm still in the routine, you know. So like, if all of a sudden we had to go spontaneous video, I'd be good from the top up.
Yeah.
And PJs, you know, well, nobody would ever see those.
Yeah.
So I think I'd be okay all
They'd be
around.
too distrted by the snapped-on hair. They'd be like, awesome hair.
Right. That's the whole purpose of the hair, is to distract from the PJs. Hey, I don't have much else to cover in the top of the story. Should we just jump right into the top story in today's SciByte?
Let's jump right in.
All right, what is today's story about?
Today, one of Saturn's moons, Dione, is about the size of the moon, are the same distance between the Earth and the moon, and it orbits in about 2.7 days. But according to some recent cassini-huygens, it's the satellite probe that's orbiting Saturn, it's, was announced just this last week that they actually saw molecular oxygen ions along its surface, giving it technically a wispy oxygen atmosphere. I say in quotation marks.
Oh, really? So in quotation marks because it might not be oxygen, or because it's like so little, or what?
Yeah, it's so little. This is like, technically it's an atmosphere because it's some sort of gas surrounding it. But it's just ions, so it's, positively or negatively charged atoms. Probably caused by solar high energy particles hitting the ice covered surface, kicks up some oxygen in the process. Or maybe geological processes involved. But the estimated density is about one oxygen ion for every, 2,500 cubic feet.
So I'm not going to be taking a jog?
Probably not. It's about 5 trillion times less dense than the Earth's surface.
Whoa, whoa. Trillion?
Yeah, 5 trillion. It's about equivalent to the atmosphere about 300 miles up.
Man, that's gonna, wow, I didn't realize just 300 miles it was reduced that dramatically. So that's gonna interfere with like making macaroni and cheese and all kinds of things.
Yeah, the macaroni and cheese is not gonna nuke right.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not gonna turn out right.
You microwave your macaroni and cheese for real.
Oh, the frozen kind.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah, okay.
I mean,
yeah, I like that stuff because sometimes it burns a little bit around the edges, and that's actually kind of good.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Wow. 6 trillion times, huh? Okay.
Yes.
So is this kind of like one of those things where it's good because maybe they could harvest oxygen and then make an environment that's safe?
Anything that has ice, you can actually harvest oxygen. You can take water and electrolyze it, split it up into hydrogen and oxygen. So you can get it straight from that. But what it does indicate is that there's oxygen there. Oxygen is seen as a couple different places in the Saturn system. All the moons, all 62 of its moons and Saturn itself. But they're able to see oxygen in different places. So it kind of indicates that oxygen itself is not an indicator for life. You can't just say, hey, there's oxygen there. There must be life.
Okay, sure. Okay, that makes sense.
So there's lots of ways. I mean, this is high energy particles blasting into the ice and it's kind of essentially breaking apart little pieces of the water in the ice and kind of giving a little bit of oxygen every once in a while. There are some scientists who say it could be through some geological process that we don't understand, shifting things or causing things to happen.
Sure. I guess, though, I mean, just because oxygen there, it doesn't guarantee life, but it also means it's possibility there could be something, even if it can exist in 6 trillion times less oxygen density.
Yeah, 5 trillion less dense. It's hard to say. I mean, you're going to have to survive the rigors of space with vacuum. Now I believe we have seen some things in meteorites, that have been traveling through the vacuum of space for a long time, that have maybe been knocked off a planet, that there's some indication that, if I recall correctly, that something could have been on there, that there's a possibility that could have survived to some point. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, we constantly think there couldn't be life somewhere. There's, like, oh no, life can't exist there. Oh, wait, yeah, maybe it can. There are lots of strange places on Earth that we find some sort of goo,
right,
or mold or something. So it's hard to say, but
skeptical Heather is skeptical. It sounds like, though.
Yeah, if it's an oxygen needing something, I mean, to hunt down the one oxygen, atom, you'd have to go, search over, 2,500 cubic feet. So you're searching for a while. You're like, here, right, little guy, I'm looking for you. By the time you found it, you're like, can't breathe.
Yeah, okay. So harvesting oxygen molecules would be sort of a very slim game.
Yeah, so you'd assume that it couldn't be surviving on oxygen. It'd have to be doing something else, unless it was breaking down the ice itself.
So how can they tell? How can they tell how thin it is? Did you explain that and it kind of went over my head? I don't understand exactly from this distance how they're... I mean, well, first of all, how did we not see it before? And now all of a sudden, now that we can see it, do we know exactly how thick it is?
Well, we're not seeing it here from Earth. We have a probe, Cassini-huygens. It was launched in 1997.
Right, yeah, it's been out there for a while.
It's been orbiting since about 2004. And so from there, this is where a lot of the awesome pictures of Saturn's moons are from. Some of the up close pictures of the rings of Saturn.
Yeah, okay.
We've been able to study those very closely.
Those are awesome.
Oh yeah, some of this really great detailed stuff. And so it's this satellite that was able to look, and it was actually able to detect it. And if you can go through so many passes and say, none here, none here. Ooh, there's one. None here, none here, none here. Oh, there's another one. You can kind of build up the kind of data set that tells you, how often it would happen. Or you could just look at the planet itself, and take the spectrographic analysis and say, ooh, there's just a little bit of oxygen, atoms every once in a while. So there's a couple of ways that they can estimate that and kind of get a better idea about how much oxygen is there. Well, and then from that,
And I guess to be fair, they're looking at, 62 known moons that orbit Saturn, so that's a lot of moons to go through from a distance.
Yeah, there's a lot of moons. They're also studying the rings pretty closely. They're studying Saturn. So, this planet itself, the rings, which are incredibly interesting to kind of watch what they're doing, the small moons inside the rings, how they're affecting them, some of the bigger moons and how they're reacting. So there's a lot of different things going on in the system. And you just have to build up enough data over time to be like, let's look at this one for a while. Or you take a little bit of data over every one that you pass by. And then you're kind of accumulating all the data. It's like if you, drive around town the little like the Google,
With the
street view
streetcar
person.
cameras, and
Yeah, the
every
streetcar
pass they
camera.
go, they get a little more data into the system, and then they just keep adding to it and adding to it.
Yeah, so
I
it's
like
like
it.
if you like drove around town randomly, and you're like checking, over years, and you're like checking out what's on Main Street, and you're like, hey, there's a pizza joint. I wonder when they're open.
Science
So
is very patient.
yeah, so you have to like wait and be like, I've seen it, they're on at this time. I've seen it, they're closed at this time. So you just kind of build up that kind of data to kind of say, oh, they open about this time and they close about that time. So it's, and you've passed all sorts of other things in the meantime, but you kind of just build up all the, all this moon stuff gets stacked up, all another moon stuff gets stacked up, all the data from the rings. So you just kind of have to take what you can get and start building it up together. And sort of, once you find something, that kind of indicates, so like, this looks like it could be doing that, then you maybe get it to pay attention and kind of specifically look for that the next time it goes around.
So I guess these moons are now kind of becoming famous for having ice on them and for having now a thin atmosphere on them. Some of them have some very interesting other attributes about them. I long for a time when we could actually just be going out there and like just doing a great scientific endeavor out to these moons and doing all this kind of analysis. But even sitting back here and looking at these remotely with the different probes, and I mean, we have Cassini out there. That's awesome. There's a lot of very interesting things going on with this planet and its moons. And is Jupiter, is this happening, or is Saturn the one that has all the action when it comes to the moons like this?
Well, Jupiter has its 4 big moons, which are really very interesting. Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. Io is the one that is just very volcanic. It's being mushed and squished by Jupiter's its gravity. So it's essentially being molded like silly putty all the time. It stays warm and kind of squishy.
That's like my stereotypical moon, actually. When I think of like a moon that's not ours in the solar system, Io is the one I go to.
Yeah. And as they go farther out, then you finally get Callisto, which the farthest of the big 4, which is very icy. So you kind of have this range of stuff on Jupiter. You're like really hot, too hot, medium hot, cooler, cold. So those are really very specific. It has some smaller moons, a whole bunch of smaller moons, but those are the big 4 that they really look at and are very interesting. Saturn just has a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff interacts with the rings and how it interacts with the rings. And it just has so many that there's a lot of different things going on.
Yeah. Do you know, I guess the Cassini probe will just be out there for as long as it operates. I mean, we don't know if there's like a set operation window where like in 2 years it's done or anything like that. Like it's not moving on, right?
No, it'll be there until it's done. I'm trying to recall what it's powered by. It can't be solar.
Love. It's powered by love.
It's powered by love. The love of Saturn.
Yeah,
it's one of those Greek gods or goddesses.
Yeah.
I don't think
love is it though.
No, I don't think it was love.
No.
Probably not.
No. Well, any other thoughts on that story?
No, it's just very interesting as we look around and kind of see all of the oxygen and various things in this distant systems, specific systems like Saturn or Jupiter, and kind of what they tell us about, our own solar system and what it could indicate about other solar systems.
Well, and it's an interesting thing to have a little bit of oxygen in our own backyard. That's pretty exciting, actually. So it's kind of an interesting find. All right, well, why don't we take a pause here, and I want to tell folks about my audiobook pick this week. I do this every now and then on SciByte, and oh man, do I have a great audiobook purchase. And I'm recommending audible.com here, and we have a link in the show notes. You do have to use that link, but if you use that link, you get the book for free. Yeah, that's right. If you're a new Audible subscriber, you will get the book for free, and even if you cancel your Audible account, you don't lose the book, which is really nice. Now, this week, I'm recommending a Stephen King novel, and I actually am sort of new to Stephen King. My dad is a big Stephen King fan, but I've heard mixed things about Stephen King, so I wasn't quite sure, and this is the first time I've jumped in. It's a time travel book. It's called 11/22/63, a novel. It takes place back in the day before Kennedy was assassinated, and you take an average man and you have to send him back in time to prevent Kennedy's assassination with the idea of maybe a dramatic change in everything. Like sort of like the Kennedy assassination was sort of like a domino for a lot of things that happened. This is a very fascinating book. It's 30 hours long, and I'm about 20 hours into it. And it is narrated by one of the most talented readers this guy is the character of the book. It is very compelling. Here, I'll play a clip for you.
Harry Dunning graduated with flying colors. I went to the little GED ceremony in the LHS gym at his invitation. He really had no one else, and I was happy to do it. After the benediction, spoken by Father Bandy, who rarely missed an LHS function, I made my way through the milling friends and relatives to where Harry was standing alone in his billowy black gown, holding his diploma in one hand and his rented mortarboard in the other. I took his hat so I could shake his hand. He grinned, exposing a set of teeth with many gaps.
Listen to that guy. Now, is that not a talented reader? He does several voices in this book that are just awesome. One of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, but I'll tell you what really got me into this book. The way they handled time travel is like nothing I've ever thought of before. Like literally listening to this book, I thought, how does the human mind come up with these ideas? This is so much fun. Totally a new approach to time travel with some major caveats that are fantastic, that really add a twist. You got to check out this book. Check out the link in the show notes. Fantastic reviews. I like this. This guy put it great. Time travel, history, and Stephen King. Wow. And let me tell you a little bit about that too. It is a little bit like a history lesson because so much of this story, and there are parts that are kind of slow, but it's this rich, textured kind of slowness that you live in this world and you experience it, and you're there, and it's so deep that you don't mind that it's slow. And the things that you learn about America in the late 50s and early 60s is extremely useful for somebody like me that's just before my time, and I don't really have an appreciation for that time.
Yeah, the best part, like the things that I've learned the most through history classes, being a science person, was the times where I read novels or books where it was an autobiography. It was just kind of a story about that time. And
I guess Stephen King took a lot of points to make sure that things were historically very accurate in the book. So like if he says something happened at a certain time, you can actually commit that to memory because that is what happened when it happened. It has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And now I'm not the most read guy out there, but I've been reading more and more books, and audible.com is the way to do it. You can do it while you're out walking around. You can do it while you're doing chores. You can do it while you're driving. It's one of the reasons why I love the medium of audio for this kind of information relay. And this reader is just a great one to jump into. It's 1 credit. You can get it for free if you use the link in the show notes. And also, I want to say thank you for supporting SciByte when you do that. All right, Heather, then you know what that means.
All right.
It's time for the SciByte News Bite.
That's right.
What's our first story in the News Bite?
First up, we have heart-powered pacemaker.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah, however circular, programming that is. So this is a device that actually harvests energy from the reverberations of the heartbeat. If you put your hand on your chest, you can kind of obviously feel some of the vibrations. So this thing is able to, from piezoelectric, so it gets power from vibration. It's kind of the thing you'll have in a gas. You cook on it outside. You press the button. And,
like a little starter?
Yeah, it's like a starter. You hit it and then it cracks, so it creates energy.
I've got an old watch that as I walk, it charges based on sort of the ba-bump, ba-bump, ba-bump of walking. So it's that kind of principle.
Mm-hmm. Sort of. Sometimes those are, just the swinging of your arm is sort of moving a swing that's spinning up a gear that's powering it up. This is actually like you implant it into one of the thoracic artery, which in a heart, a open heart surgery, they'll generally just take that out. But this is one that you could place in there that, you put this little instrument in there and the heart would actually this would create, like 10 times or 8 times the amount of energy that the pacemaker would actually need to operate. So
That's awesome.
So it's operating at, there's a whole bunch more energy there. And they could actually make it even better if they use magnets. So they could like boost the signal of the vibrations.
Wow. My grandfather used a pacemaker.
Yeah. And currently, the reason this is really amazing is because currently they're batteries, and which only last 5 to 10 years. And so they have to go back and do another surgery to replace the battery.
Right.
So this would decrease the need for that. So, maybe it would just keep going forever, or, it would only need to be, you'd only need another surgery if something happened to it or if it stopped working just the right way. But it's, they can engineer these ceramic layers to harvest. It's just a whole bunch of the different frequencies. Your heartbeat, if there's other, vibrations going around in your body, it can harvest those too.
That is extremely ingenious. I mean, turn that stuff around into energy generation. Why not?
Well, it actually came from technology designed to harvest light unmanned airplanes.
What?
So, take the vibrations from the power of the wing, the wing vibrations, and take that to turn it into energy.
Oh, I didn't know they did that. That makes a lot of sense too, though. Of course they would.
Now, they don't have a prototype yet, but they have very detailed, blueprints and concept drawings and simulations and things like that to show that the concept will work.
Okay, so it's pretty early stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty early stuff, but it's one of those things where the breakthrough and the design for this is really interesting. It's like, hey, this would be a great path to follow.
Okay. Hey, we think we could accomplish this. We've sketched it out, we've modeled it up, and everything pans out. Does anybody want to spend the money on this to see if it actually works?
Well, yeah.
I imagine bringing something like this to market. I mean, could you figure the amount of testing that a company would have to invest in order to bring a product like this out? I mean, that's got to be expensive.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of testing. There's, animal testing and all sorts of things that come before human testing. And even then, generally, that first group is generally the kind of people who are like in dire need.
Yeah.
You're like, you are probably not going to need this in 2 years anyway, so go for it.
Well, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That is true. But it just kind of seems prehistoric in the sense that pacemakers of today have this battery pack that we have to somehow account for and manage. I mean, that just is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, there are external ones too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then you have to actually have something leading to the external power pack.
Yeah.
And, you think about what that means. That means a wire through your side, probably.
Yeah.
Eesh, no thanks.
Yeah.
Although maybe better than surgery. I don't know. Hopefully I won't ever have to worry about it. I mean, by the time I'm old enough, maybe they'll have these things on the market.
Well, yeah, or all our hearts will be nice and going like they're supposed to.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they'll engineer the foods around us to just make our hearts stronger. I can hope, right? I mean,
yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Have a superfood that you can munch on while playing a video game that makes your heart stronger, your muscles more toned.
That would be great. If they could make it so I could also do that while podcasting, I think we got a winner. I think we got a real winner.
New gaming podcasting snack. Sounds like the ultimate thing they could, advertise for.
So what do you suppose a company like this, who doesn't have an actual product, all they've got is a concept, they got some blueprints and some models. I mean, they really are looking, you figure, to sell it to another bigger company, right? I mean,
an investor.
Yeah, okay. Or to bring an investor in.
Yeah, they could, looking at them, so like kind of sprinkling the ideas around and be like, hey, who has money and is willing to invest our idea? Promise we'll work really hard for your money.
Promise.
Promise.
So it generates 10 microwatts, like you were saying, which you mentioned is 8 times what the pacemaker needs.
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting that the pacemaker needs so little.
Yeah, well, I mean, over time they've been able to, refine this. I mean, the pacemaker itself has been out for a while.
Right.
So, you get it smaller, get it more efficient, aim to exactly what it needs to do, in exactly the right places. So they've been able to have many iterations on this, and if it has to be powered by a battery pack. You want it the absolutely most efficient you can do, because you don't want to have, if somebody's had this, this major open heart surgery, then you don't want to have to continually, have them in for surgery every 2 years.
Totes. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Or, every year, every 2 years, you have to go in and top your battery pack off. You're like, hey, it's a charging station. Let's go.
Right.
You want it to be as long as you can. I mean, it's 5 to 10 years as it is, but it's still, every so often you have to go in, and you don't really think about that. I mean, it was kind of, I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, you do kind of have to go back and have, surgery to top your little heart battery up.
Yeah, and in some cases, well, that's kind of, I won't go there. It's kind of dark. But,
Yeah.
All right. So, any other thoughts on that story?
No, it's just kind of a very beginnings of a possible thing that seems really cool.
Well, I'll tell you, Mars. Before the show started today, you said something that really made my ears kind of perk up. Yeah. You said we'd be talking about 3-dimensional fossils.
Yes.
Now, I assume that means something really fancy. Something with really fancy dinosaurs or something. So will you explain to me? There are dinosaurs involved, right?
Well, not so much. Dinosaurs in specific instance.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Most of the fossils we think of are, the squashed pancakes, because of the process they do. It's in rock and mud, and you just squash flat, and except for, bones and such. But around hot springs, they have silica in the water that's very precipitated, and it permeates the plant tissues and all the plants and the animals and the insects and the bacteria. And so when they start decaying, it's actually the silica stays dissolved, so it sort of maintains a shape. So once you dig this out, it's kind of like a big block O environment. And you can take it out and you can slice it real thin, polish it up, and you just kind of peel away layer by layer.
If folks are not watching we put out a visual version that goes along with the audio feed that you can watch on our site. But if you are listening to the audio version, go over to the show notes and see if you agree with me. But these look like germs. They look like slimy germs to me.
Well, some of them are. They had everything from the plants and crustaceans and insects and ferns and bacteria. It's all these things that they're able to, slice and have, 3-dimensional level. We'll see, the internal structure, the external structure. And it's almost like being able to walk through walk through the trees. You're walking through this little area, so you can see how it's all put together and how they interacted with each other and how they were made.
Right.
So you can see, the crustaceans were exactly this, and they were kind of dealing with this, and how the ferns and the trees all kind of interacted together, and, these grew tall and the ferns kind of grew, really out. So it's a real indicator of, it transforms the understanding of the life and how they all interacted. It's one of those cases where, you slice it thin and you're able to see, these crustaceans. You can see all the internal organs and how they were made up. It's not just, a squashed, outline of a crustacean or a lobster or something like that. You can actually see, it's like, oh, here's where its stomach is. Here's where its lungs are. Here's where its pinches are trying to snap up an insect.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Captured in time.
Yeah, there's a couple of these locations that they've had before, but this is a new one. It's from a completely different era that we don't have a lot of data for. And so it's really cool that they have this environment that they're able to really get a snapshot of 3-dimensionally. So they're able to see, everything that's going on in this little wetlands.
I wonder, that is very cool, because it's always amazing what they can pull out when they can look at stuff from a long time ago.
Yeah, they can pull out a lot of stuff from the 2-dimensional fossils. But from this 3-dimensional stuff, they're just really able to go so much further. And even like taking this data You can use it to essentially calibrate other, flattened two-dimensional fossils that you see. If you can see, like, this plant would look like this in a two-dimensional fossil. Oh, wow, okay. So this is how they were laid out. We can sort of back calculate to this is what the environment probably looked like.
That's pretty quiet. That's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy, Heather. It's like getting to peer back in time. It's like looking through the looking glass.
Very much like, this is really cool. We like literally can walk through the trees and walk through this wetlands and be like, make this 3-dimensional, simulation. Be like cruising through the wetlands and seeing what it's like.
I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but it's about as close as we're probably going to get in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Any other thoughts on that story?
No, it's just very interesting and very cool to think of these, in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not just for lame movie theaters anymore.
3D, it's the new craze for science.
Yes.
All right, well, let's take a quick pause. I just want to give a mention to folks. If you haven't been over to jupiterbroadcasting.com in a while, if you scroll all the way down to the website, all the way to the very, very bottom, we have links that you can click on before you start shopping for Amazon US, UK, Newegg.com, ThinkGeek, Best Buy, Mint.com, which is free. I don't know why they pay us if you use it. Audible.com, which you already know I love. And we also have, thanks to Rikai and Scooter in the IRC chat room, a Chrome extension now. If you use the Chrome browser and you install that, it'll automatically tag your shopping session for one of those sites, and a small percentage of your purchase goes to us. You stay anonymous. We don't know what you bought. If you want to buy hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of condoms just so that we get a cut of that, I wouldn't know. I mean, I might see we sold hundreds and hundreds of condoms, but I wouldn't know who they were sold to. Just so you know.
We wouldn't say science sold that, would we?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. So I just want to give a mention of that, and thanks to everybody who supports Jupiter Broadcasting with that. Now, not to be outdone by the news bite, we have a 2-byte news.
Yes.
With a new fancy theme. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
News
Science
bite.
Jam.
2 of them. News bite. All right. I see our first story in the news bite is about Europa.
Yes, right. This is the moon that has the ice crust on the outside, and it looks ever so much, and that we're assuming that it has a big ocean underneath. We could see all sorts of evidence for that. Now, what we're looking at is, unfortunately, recent findings say, even though it has a lot of oxygen, that could support it, it's a little corrosive.
Oh, so I'm not going to be taking a swim.
I wouldn't suggest it. It's got a pH of about 2.6. It's about your average soft drink. So it's not going to, hurt, but...
What you're actually saying is that the pH levels in soft drinks is too high and we shouldn't be drinking them, is what you're actually saying there.
It doesn't like life. Well, it's like the old story. Put your tooth in there and it just kind of dissolves it.
Soda pop doesn't like life. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. See, that's they don't really put that on the commercials on television. It doesn't really sell your soda.
No.
Soda, it doesn't like life. And like, thumbs up.
That's a great little theme. I gotta clip that. It doesn't like life. All right, so what gives them the indication that the pH? I mean, how? Okay, skeptical Chris is skeptical here, but that moon is more than just a few miles away. It's not like they're sticking pH sticks in it. How do they know?
No. So there's oxidants on the surface. They say would react with sulfides and all these different compounds. So they can look at the surface and how it interacts with things, and they can kind of, estimate and put it through the science and say, you know what, it's gonna generate some sulfuric and other kind of acids. So it's going to create, from what we can tell, all the surface stuff is going to create some sort of acids. And we know that there's some sort of, interaction. We've seen places where there's ice crumpled, where it indicates there might be a lake underneath, between the big ocean and the surface. So there is some rotation that you can assume happens anyway. So if there is some interaction, then the items on the surface are going to end up in the water eventually.
Right.
So there are some acids that mix in there which would raise the pH level of it. Now, it doesn't rule out life entirely, There are life forms, there are microbes here on Earth that are in acid mine drainage.
Right.
The bright red Rio Tinto River in Spain.
Yeah, they're scary.
So
It's scary looking stuff that lives in there.
Yeah, and so it's like this acid, so it's all like red and orange and creepy. You know, the scientists are kind of standing on the edge and putting probes way in, but there are microbes there. So there are acid-loving microbes, acidophiles. So they can depend on iron and sulfates to make energy. So it's possible that, Europa would have this acidic-loving little microbes.
Sure, okay.
So if, Europa or Ganymede, even Mars. So it looks like these are all kind of different extremophiles that we call on Earth, where it's life that is living in extreme conditions. These are like extremophiles on steroids. But it's possible. It just means that we're finding out more about the ocean. So we're like, hey, cool, it's a saltwater ocean. Oh, it's a little bit acidic too.
Man, I mean, when you combine that with the fact that this thing doesn't have an atmosphere, so it's going to be bombarded with crap from space all the time, it just sounds like it's going to be an awful place to take a vacation.
I mean, if it's about the pH of a soda pop, then just bring some lemon, squirt it in there, and you've got like, Sprite or 7-Up or something.
Nice.
Like, hey, it's all carbonated.
As a matter of fact, I'm drinking a cup of water that has a little lemon in it right now.
There you go.
Yeah. So I'm all set. I am bringing down my acidic level as we speak, which is funny that a lemon does that, right? Because when you think of a lemon, you think of acid, or right? You think of very acidic.
Maybe you're balancing out.
Yeah.
The acids, the lemon is spiking your water. That sounds like crazy acid-based science.
I like it.
Lemon-based science.
Lemon science. Any other thoughts on that story?
No, just another one of those interesting things where, we talked about Saturn's moon earlier. So it's like all these different moons are indicating various things. And the more we find out about them, the more we're able to more pin down exactly what's going on them and what exactly it means. And in these cases where there is water ice or liquid water, what it could mean for, possible microbes out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure. All right. Well, why don't we change gears here for a little bit and talk about the science of Facebook.
Yes.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah, and kind of creepy. Makes you really think about what you put on your Facebook or if you have a Facebook profile.
Oh, Facebook is 100% totally creepy in my book. Facebook is creepy.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen on Facebook ads from people that you follow saying, I recommend this product because they went and liked the other company's page?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
I've seen where I get something, even on Amazon, where I'm like, I bought this. And it's like, hey, say that you got this on Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
so when you do that,
I don't tell all my friends that.
Well, when you do that, not only are you putting that in your feed, but you're giving them permission to use your likeness on ads that they automatically generate. So like the ads along the side of Facebook will have your avatar on there saying, Heather likes Coca-Cola. You should try it too. And it's weird. And you never see it unless you're looking at somebody else's Facebook page because they never show you the version with your own face on it.
Oh,
so you don't even know what's happening.
Random people.
You don't even know, but that's not what we're even talking about. We're talking about something else completely different, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
All right.
There's employers can look at your Facebook profile. They can get a lot of information from you that you might not realize. Vacation pictures from a glacier off New Zealand or all sorts of different places could indicate your openness to new experiences. If you and your friends are, constantly arguing, maybe that indicates how agreeable you are. If they see a lot of friends going, oh man, I'm sorry, buck up, cheer champ, and I'm thinking of you, I'll help you. That indicates your emotional stability.
Can I be honest with you?
What?
We had somebody who is in the Linux podcasting space and wanted to work with us, and I was considering it because he was a talented guy. Mm-hmm. And I went to his Google Plus or his Facebook page, but same thing. And just tons of drama. Just tons of issues after issue after, like, making mountains out of molehills. And you know what? Based on that, I decided not to work with him. because I said, I don't need the drama. And I really used that as evaluation. It wasn't essentially a job, review, and it wasn't like an applicant that I was reviewing, but it still was something I factored in. I was like, well, let's go see what this guy just talks about.
Yeah, it's not just, smoke and mirror science. They took 6 people with experience in human resources, and they said, sample these 500 people, and in 5 to 10 minutes, they spent on a person's Facebook page. They evaluated them on what they call the big 5 personality traits: extroversion, conscientiousness, emotional stability, agreeableness, open to new experiences. And then they took those members and they said, hey, give a self-evaluation of yourself, what you do. And then they said, here, take an IQ test. And so when the evaluators did a high Facebook score, it was indicating a future good future job experience.
So they actually correlated it back.
Yes, they did. When they followed up 6 months later, they gave questionnaires to their employers. They gave questionnaires to the people to rate themselves. And the ratings that they gave based on Facebook really correlated strongly with how the employers thought of them and how they thought of themselves. More accurately than an IQ test, even.
It's funny, right? Because people will say things and do things on Facebook or Twitter that they would never do in person, like at a party.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were saying before that you did this. Now, employers, legally are only able to ask certain questions. Now, by looking at your Facebook page, they can get a lot more information than legally they're allowed to ask.
Oh, and it's public information, so they can use it, as far as I know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can see everything. You can see gender, race, age, status, what you're doing, how you are mentally. Are you arguing with your friends all the time? And when they did a study, 90% of recruiters and hiring managers actually looked at the person's Facebook page, whether they are supposed to or not.
90%.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, you're going to take, this is hiring managers and recruiters. So this is any job that has that kind of kind of thing.
That's true. So that means probably another step up than like a small mom and pop business or something like that. But I think
medium level businesses, anything that doesn't have, some sort of major hiring personnel. But there is a certain point, I mean, in a small business, then they know your name and they can look you up pretty easily.
Well, it's just a Google search, because the Google search on a person's name will bring up all of their social profiles. I kind of like what Willie is suggesting in the IRC chat room. We do SciByte live Tuesday nights, 7:30 Pacific, over at jblive.tv, and the people in the chat room are really the stars of the show, because the audio shows, we're showing visuals, but when we don't have something actively to show, we put the chat room up and they get to hang out. And Willie suggested that people ought to look at, what did he say, the last 15 things they posted to a social network, and ask yourself if you'd want to share it with your employers or family.
Yeah. Alan says, he has it closed down to family and friends. That's what I have mine broke down to. Because, all I use mine for really is updates on family out of state.
Yeah. And
so I can see what they're up to, and I can kind of post real quick, and then, just a quick glance every couple of days and be like, oh, I really need to call them and see, how that was doing. Or, oh, I'll leave a message. Good job. You won that game.
See, and I've thought about resetting up like a private Facebook account, because I made the mistake of going public with my Facebook account years ago. And now like they've turned up what that exposes. Like the timeline thing is freaky to me. I don't like there being just a single page where everybody can go see what year I was married, what year this happened, what year that happened. I mean, it's a total dossier on password reset questions. I mean, for one, but for two, it's just kind of weird. And so, but I still have family members and friends on there, and that's how they're using it. With they only have 30 people that are following them, and so they'll post something. And so I don't know. It's kind of weird.
And that's kind of where I was standing. Like I made my Twitter, and I made it for JB Marsbase, and I said, if I make another one, then I'll make it very private.
Yeah.
Or my Facebook page. I've had a couple of people that know my Gmail or found me on Facebook. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, be my friend. And I'm like, unfortunately, no, this is my private. And I don't want to make anyone feel bad. I'm like, they are my friends, but
it's a tough thing to do.
This is, I have, very private family that really has nothing to do with what I'm doing. And I want to kind of protect their privacy. What happens if somebody sees something there because, somebody didn't lock it down right? Because,
Right.
sometimes members of your family aren't quite as savvy as you are.
Always.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're always you have to think about that. You're like,
oh yeah, and they can get
what
bogus
if grandma
apps or
complains about,
You're totally right.
some weird thing you did. And you're like, Grandma, all my friends saw that.
You are absolutely right. You nailed it. That is the biggest problem. It's this new weird form of social interaction that we haven't quite mastered yet. And to be honest, I feel a fair amount of social pressure to accept friend requests.
Yeah.
It's just
I've had to go through that too. I'm like, old high school friends that find me, or, really old friends. I'm like, some of them like, yeah, sure. I mean, you were like my best friend, or you were like a sister to me for like 2 years. Other people, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, don't ignore. I'm just like letting it sit in my box forever.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing, and it's something that people who listen to SciByte, I bet for the most part, are probably already savvy and kind of thinking of this kind of stuff. But maybe, take Willie's advice and maybe think about some of the stuff that might be on your public feed and how employers might view that. You never know.
It's like anything you put out there that can be searched for. And even the stuff that you have locked down, if they change policies, then, if you are keeping on top of that.
Right. Yep, policy changes happen all the time with Facebook.
And you have to, reset up this or that. And it's like, what if your employer saw this? What if they could see like 2 weeks of your stuff? You're like,
Willie,
no thanks.
Willie in the chat room went and looked at his own Facebook page, and it says if you look at it, he looks like an emotionally unstable geek.
So the answer is, if you have a lot of drama on your Facebook, add a lot of like really straight face, like take, go get pictures of the Grand Canyon.
Just saved a cat from a fire today. Boy, are my arms tired.
Yeah. You're like, say good things about yourself completely randomly. Like, I worked on that project really hard today. I got so much done.
Yeah.
Paste a picture of yourself like green screened against the Grand Canyon with a smiley face and a thumbs up.
Oh, I could, actually, Heather, I could totally do a really good fake. I should do a fake Chris.
A fake vacation.
I could just do fake everything. A whole fake profile with fake green screen and everything. That'd be great.
Yeah. And it's like, publicly available so people can search that about you.
There's a good science experiment. All right. Well, at the top of the show, you had mentioned something that I didn't read down in the show notes yet, so I don't know anything about this, but you had said transistors that you can crumple up.
Yes.
That sounds pretty high tech. Tell me about this.
Okay, so there are already transistors that can be rolled, be folded, be stretched, made of carbon nanotubes. Now, there's a Japanese company that has made all carbon nanotube transistors that can be crumpled like a piece of paper without degradation of the electrical properties. Like the little picture on it is just like them like holding something, and it looks like, a piece of paper that, you scribbled your grocery list on, and it kind of sat in your pocket.
No, it looks like it's transparent. It looks like saran wrap that's been crumpled up.
Yeah, that's what it more looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it's really something.
Yeah, and if it doesn't degrade the electrical properties, then you could use it on like stickers or adhesive bandages, wearable electronics. So you could literally, instead of be all wired up if you were doing heart if you're 24-hour heart monitoring or something like that, you just put a sticker there instead of having like a little band on you. You just put a couple stickers on, and that's all it is.
Wow. Yeah. The device form factor options that a technology like this enables are kind of mind numbing. I mean, that is a lot they could play with.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yep. I put it on a 2-byte because this is incredible stuff, but I am not enough savvy like the TechSnap people to say enough about this without breaking the science.
Yeah, those guys go into a lot of detail, those TechSnap guys.
Yeah, well, they're more smarter in that kind of science.
Now, one of the things that kind of gives me a little bit of pause is that it says it's coming out of the University of Tokyo, and also working with the Tokyo University of Science, but to me that makes it sound like it's pretty early days.
Well, yeah. Anything that's happening in a university, I mean, you've got the professors that, need to come out with their papers every once in a while. There's rules about tenure, and goodness only knows how it works in Japan. And they've got a whole bunch of grad students, pretty much anywhere, who work for nothing or, work for, literal peanuts. Like, here you go. Peanuts for your food. Shakeable peanuts, and you get to eat.
Wow.
So there's a lot of this cutting edge stuff that can come out of colleges and stuff
For sure.
that have, some sort of stream of money.
Did you ever think about the fact that you and I are talking about things on this show that we are going to be lucky if in 10 years from now we're using a device that has that in it, right? Don't you think?
It was
I wonder if
early
I'll
in
remember
the-
back.
early in my company. We do a lot of Mars in situ stuff as well. Most of the project I work on,
Sure.
where it's, you go there and you make what you need to on Mars. And one of the guys I was working on when we were both interning was a joke. We're like, by the time this gets to Mars, they're going to come and find us in the nursing home. It'd be like, please, can you tell us what this means? It would be like, sure, we'll look at that. All old and cranky people. He's like, I'll be kicking them off my yard. They'll be like, please, please, the Mars program is depending on you.
Although, to be honest, some of the stuff that you picked to talk about is sort of the cream of the crop best stuff. So some of the stuff we're more likely to see fast-tracked when you think about it. So.
Yeah, some of this will be as fast-tracked as they can because it's really promising stuff that's really, really awesome. And it's like, wow, this is really useful. This is amazing as long as it continues to be true.
Right.
We should run with that in that direction quickly.
Well, if you hear anything more about it, I'd be really curious to hear. So update us if you see a new story. Now, I've got this flashing button here on the SciByte computer. I'm going to go, what's this do? Whoa!
Whoa! Push the button.
It would appear we have some viewer feedback.
We do.
What's the feedback for this week?
This is sent in an article talking about chronic pain. This has long been known the central nervous system can remember painful memories, leave a trace of that memory like in your brain, in the nervous system itself. Best example people might realize is phantom limb pain. Even after if something happens and you lose a limb, even after it's gone, you feel the pain there, even though there's nothing there to feel the pain.
Right.
So they've now found they have a key understanding about how memories of pain are actually stored in your brain. So they can see when there's pain and a new sensory output, it leaves traces, that can sometimes magnify. For some people, fibromyalgia, it's like even just a gentle touch becomes like putting a hot rod to your arm. It's the absolute
hypersensitivity.
Top of hypersensitivity.
Yeah.
So, this memory of pain at a neural level is critical to like developing some sort of, so they can treat this. I mean, until now, it's just sort of give you drugs that kind of numb it.
This is interesting.
Treating,
I had heard a theory that neural pathways are kind of like channels that signals go down that are broadcasted down in your brain, sort of like an electrical wire, and that there's almost like a wearing in and a pattern that can occur, and that if you send a lot of energy and a lot of signals down this one path for a long time, that it almost becomes sort of like ingrained in, and it's just sort of rewires in a sense for it to happen. My explanation is kind of falling apart, but basically, if some certain neurons are triggered in a frequent manner for a long period of time, the brain just almost expects for them to always be operating.
Like the wagon wheels across the Old West. If there are certain places in the plains of Colorado, you can still go and see the ruts of, all the wagons that traveled. And it's still a long time ago, so you can still see that sort of leaving behind.
Yeah, there you
go.
Now,
in this case, what they're able to see is a specific protein, kinase PKM-zeta. But this specific protein sort of maintains and strengthens the memory between the neurons. So when they, stimulated something painful, then they could see that the level increased and it was persistent. So the research is showing if you can block that, then
you
at
could
a
potentially
neurological
prevent
level,
the reception of the pain.
Yeah, you could reverse that hypersensitivity.
Wow.
From this kind of stuff.
That's messing with some wiring there.
Yeah, and erasing that painful memory trace is able to reduce the persistent pain that happens. So you can kind of block it for block it this time, and it sort of mellows it out the next time.
So they think they think attacking this protein and maybe modifying this protein then won't enable for the neuron to function in the way that causes that. So the idea is they don't have to change the neuron, they have to change the protein.
Yeah, or they can treat it by by reducing the pain just by medication that you can't feel as much. So instead of treating the symptom, what you're seeing, you're treating the cause, the actual proteins that are sending out the signals for this kind of thing. If you can damp that down, then this kind of persistent pain from arthritis, from fibromyalgia, various nerve diseases, you can, there's analgesics.
Analgesics?
Wow.
Yeah. Boy.
The systems, you can reduce inflammation, reduce the feelings in the brain. That's what it kind of doing is it just kind of numbs everything. Now what this is doing is it's saying block the pathways. You're kind of slowing down the pathways that this can travel through. So you bring down the current, and it's sort of, like the ruts that you were saying, it kind of fills in those a little bit. It's like each time you fill in a little bit so it's less of a rut. And so you can kind of block it this time, slowly even it out more.
That's wow. Man, we've covered some really amazing things that modern medical science is really on the cusp of breaking.
Yeah, and sometimes you read these and it's really exciting, and then you have to remember, your skeptical pants are on the couch.
Yeah.
They are over there. Science, sometimes completely changes its mind. In 2 years, some of these things may be like, well, it kind of does that, but it also does this and this, which aren't quite as awesome. Or maybe in 2 years, they'll be like, this is the total awesomest of the awesome. Science is cheering and crying with glee. So you never really know.
Crying with glee. No, You never really know. And it's one of those things, like you were actually talking about it on the pre-show, on the live stream, about how you saw just recently some other well-known news agency that covers the news was talking about the Alzheimer's discoveries that we'd actually covered a couple of weeks ago. So it's sometimes also like some of the stuff is reported on sort of like in this weird delay.
Yeah. I was like, I have my little set of, science news sites that I go to. And I was like, oh, cool, something else? And I was like, wait a minute.
We've seen that before.
I've read this before.
Hey, SciByte's right on the edge. We're on the cutting edge of the news.
Yeah.
Because of Heather. Heather is some sort of news machine. I tell you, so you guys don't know this at home, but Heather spends days and days and days on every single episode of SciByte. You're out there. You're well connected.
Every week.
You are plugged into the news feeds out there. Well, any other thoughts on that story?
No, it's just all sorts of crazy, like you were saying, all sorts of crazy medical news that is really promising for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, Heather, then step on over here. Come on, step in here because it's time for us to get into the yes. All right, here we go. SciByte time machine. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not nearly as bumpy as it was out in the actual studio. All right, well, so our first stop in the SciByte time machine this week takes us to 136 years ago, March 10th, 1876. What happened?
We passed go and collected $200. The game of Monopoly was actually created and trademarked.
Awesome. Wow, 136 years ago, Monopoly has got some staying power.
Yeah, it was first called the landlord's game. Which, your players rented properties, paid utilities, avoided jail. So very kind of much like it is today. And so the next version, more like Monopoly is now, was, kind of, he remodeled it, and he's apparently remodeled on his favorite resort, Atlantic City.
Oh.
So he's the one, kind of made it a circular board, color-coded properties and deeds. And
he made it much more fun. He made the
playing pieces modeled after random items around his house.
He made it fun. All right. Yeah. Well, that's a cool one. Our next one takes us to 79 years ago, March 7th, 1933. Somebody's birthday.
Oh. Alexander Graham Bell made his first telephone call That's Mr. Watson, come here, I want you.
That was also my grandpa's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there you go.
There you go. So, Watson was over there in a different room. He heard the device tell him to come over, and so he went back into the room. Yes, boss. It was the first successful experiment with the telephone.
Awesome. Well, I wonder if he would have ever imagined what the phone has transformed into today.
Yeah, well, like he wrote on that day, he was really excited. And he wrote his father. He's like, great success, and talking about he's like, you know what? I think the day when the telegraph wires will be laid out to your house, just like water and gas, and people will be able to converse with themselves without even leaving home. It would be amazing.
Well, we definitely got that, and a whole lot more.
Yep. Now you don't have to leave the comforts of your house to actually say hi to anyone.
That's true. And now you and I are talking over a medium that's even more foreign than the telephone system. So truly kind of maybe a future replacement for the telephone system. All right, Heather. Well, let me refocus the SciByte computer here so that way we can look up into the sky this week.
That's right. On Wednesday, March the 7th, Mars will be shining to the left of the full moon. In the east, there's still Venus and Jupiter shining out there in the west. So, again, they're getting closer and closer. And so they're going to go, from about a fist to 4 fingers. You can kind of watch them get closer and closer. Venus is, of course, the brighter one, but Jupiter's up top. I like that. And
what's up, Jupiter?
Yep. And the moon will actually be making kind of a triangle. It'll be little crescent moon will be making a triangle with Saturn and Spica. Spica is a very bright star once they're up about 10 or 11 p.m. on Saturday. Also, something to note for all our listeners and for all our podcast people, daylight savings time in most of North America, Sunday, March 11th, 2 a.m. becomes 3 a.m.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna mess with the Linux Action Show, and it's our 200th episode.
Oh no!
Yeah, and we have a major guest lined up. Not Linus Torvalds. I don't want to set, but it's probably as big as Linus Torvalds.
Oh my gosh! And you'll all be working on an hour less sleep.
Well, yeah, and I'm a little worried that I don't want to mess up the attendance because it's going to be a Linux Action Show that no viewer of the Linux Action Show is going to want to miss.
Well, you want to make sure that the countdown is right. You have daylight savings people.
Right. You're totally
right. There's daylight savings people, and then there's non-daylight savings people. There's even states in the U.S. that don't, observe daylight savings, and there's lots of countries that don't and think we're completely crazy.
I'm gonna be totally paranoid now about the countdown timer on the live stream, but I'll try to get it right.
Okay.
Wow. So is that everything we got for today?
I think so.
Wow, there it is. Well, everyone, so that is SciByte. Now, SciByte is released every single Wednesday morning over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. And also, we have video versions of the show you can download, which include visuals. We have MP3 and OGG versions that you can subscribe to. And all of those are great ways to get the show. But also, you can tune in live over at jblive.tv Tuesday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, and you can star in our chat room, because when our faces aren't on the screen, it's the chat room's faces are, so that's a great way to go. All right, Heather, well, great show.
Great show.
And thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next week.